Hey guys, Jishia here. It's been a while since the last video. Many of you have been asking for an updated Oracle guide because of the balance patch that CN had about a month ago, so I've been busy testing out various builds to determine what is the best way to build them. This video will showcase and go through the updated talent trees and skill rotations for both specs. If you enjoyed this video and or find it useful, do hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell to get notified about future videos like these. I also stream on Twitch regularly, so follow to catch me live and ask any questions you might have about the game. Now without further ado, let's get right into the video. The written versions of this guide are on Maxroll, link in the description, so do check them out, and you can refer to them in the future if there are any minor changes made to the builds. If there are any major changes like balance patch updates, the guides will be updated very quickly to provide you guys up-to-date information. Unlike the previous guide, this guide will be using the localized names for the global version. However, on launch, the names might be different if there are any updates to the localization, so use the icons and visuals to match up the nodes and skills if that is the case. The Verdant Oracle is a support class that scales with intellect. There are two different specs you can choose to go for. One is the more DPS oriented spec, the Smite Spec. The other is the more healing oriented spec, Lifebind Spec. But first, let us go over the main tree that will have to be maxed out to access the two different specs. For the sake of the viewers who have not seen the first video, I will still be going over the main tree. If you have already seen this part, use the chapters to skip ahead. Firstly, we have this node called Inspiration. This is the main node that gives your Oracle an aura buff. This aura buffs allies within 30 meters with 50 points in Endurance, Strength, Agility, and Intellect. All of these stats are main attributes, with Endurance being present in all classes, and Strength, Agility, or Intellect being more prominent depending on your class. The node below, called Defensive Blessing, modifies Inspiration to provide an additional 200 points of armor. Next, we have Regen Buds. This is a core mechanic of Oracle. At the early levels, you only have 4 Regen Buds. When your healing skills are used, 2 Regen Buds are consumed to throw out a Nourishing Seed that will restore health. When your damaging skills are used, 2 Regen Buds are consumed to instead throw out a Wild Seed that will deal damage. To generate Regen Buds, you have to cast Wild Bloom, which is your special attack skill. Next, we have Healing Breath. When skills apply direct healing, there is a chance to trigger a treatment link, which is a healing chain that bounces between allies to heal them. That is all for the core nodes in the main tree. Now, we will first be looking at the build for the Smite Oracle. Use the chapters to skip the Lifebind Oracle, the healing focus spec, if you are more interested in that spec. Let's first look at the stats. Only the advanced attributes are important when gearing. For the advanced attributes to go for Smite Spec, you will want to prioritize Luck, and then go for Crit, and then Versatility. Luck is very important for Smite's talent synergies, and Crit is useful for dealing more damage and healing. We also want a bit of Versatility since it is multiplicative with the rest of the attributes. The reason why we do not go for Mastery is because with the raid gear sets and upgraded weapons, we will have sufficient Mastery. At level 40 gear, ignore Versatility and build Mastery. For my min-maxers, I recommend going for 40% Luck, 30% Crit, and 15% Versatility. This is what I have found to have worked the best for me in terms of dealing damage and healing. These are the skills that you run. Wild Bloom is default. Then we have the ultimate skill Divine Circle Bloom. Then the expertise skills Feral Seed, Infusion, Regen Pulse, and Nature Ward. I'll be going into why we run these skills when we go over the talent tree build. Regarding skill books, your priority will be to max out Regen Pulse, followed by Infusion, Wild Bloom, Feral Seed, Nature Ward, your basic attack, and finally your ultimate. Here are what the skills do. Wild Bloom consumes 20 energy and summons a vine to strike a target area, dealing damage and healing you and the lowest health ally. Your ultimate, Divine Circle Bloom, creates a protective dome that deals damage to enemies nearby and heals nearby allies. Standing inside the protective dome grants heal over time and a 25% damage reduction. Feral Seed summons a seed to strike enemies, dealing damage and reducing their move speed while also restoring 30 energy. Infusion consumes 30 energy to channel a seed barrage for 5.9 seconds. You can move slowly while channeling. Regen Pulse consumes 40 energy after channeling for 2.3 seconds and releases a healing pulse that also cleanses negative effects from allies. Negative effects do not include stun or frozen. Nature Ward grants allies a shield based on your attack power for 10 seconds. Now, here is my talent build for Smite Oracle. There are two different builds for Smite Oracle. One build is for dungeons, while the other build is for raids. There are a few differences in both builds, so I will highlight the changes for the raid build after going through the build for dungeon use. Smite enhances Wild Bloom to deal more damage in a larger range and also introduces a core healing mechanic, Symbiotic Mark. 30% of damage done will be restored to allies that carry the Symbiotic Mark. When you do not do any damage for 5 seconds, your basic attacks will now heal teammates. This effect will be lost as soon as you damage an enemy. The first talent node you unlock is Nature Shield. This makes your Wild Bloom apply a small shield to healed allies that heals them additionally whenever they take damage. Follow this up with Wild Blessing to add an additional charge to Wild Bloom and reduce its energy cost. These two nodes help to increase the effectiveness of Wild Bloom, which is often used when playing Smite Spec. Next, we go for Thorns. This causes your Wild Seeds to apply Thorns to enemies, dealing damage equal to 20% of your attack power per second. Enemies also take 20% more force damage when affected by Thorns. This damage over time helps in dealing consistent damage and healing when Symbiotic Mark is active. Go for Pulsed Reality next to cause Regen Pulse to spread twice. This will greatly increase your healing effectiveness. We upgrade the effectiveness of Regen Pulse further later down the tree. For now, we go for Shelter to double the shield amount of Nature Shield for 5 seconds after casting Infusion. We also go for Luck Damage to increase the amount of luck damage and healing done. Now, we upgrade Regen Pulse by going for Pulse Retrospect and Pulse Echo. Pulse Retrospect causes Regen Pulse to now deal damage as well and returns to your location after reaching the maximum distance. Pulse Echo unlocks a stacking mechanic that increases Regen Pulse's damage whenever Infusion deals damage. It stacks up to 5 times and lasts for 5 seconds. Wide Area Thorns is next to allow thorns to be spread to nearby enemies using Feral Seed. This node is especially useful for spreading thorns in groups of enemies instantly. Next, Final Bloom Wheel. This reduces the cooldown of Infusion when Wild Bloom triggers a lucky hit. Since Infusion is linked to many of the important talent nodes you take throughout the tree, this node is important to have. If you have followed the tree up to here so far, you will have spent 50 points in total and can move on to the bottom part of the tree. If not, you might have missed out on some of the intermediate nodes, so have a look and see which ones you might have missed out. Moving on, we unlock Stack Charge. After triggering 10 Nourishing or Wild Seeds, Wild Bloom will evolve into Stack Charge. Stack Charge does damage to all enemies in its path and restores health to your allies. This skill is arguably the coolest skill Oracle has access to. Follow this up with Double Infusion, which doubles the output of Infusion after Stack Charge is cast. This allows Infusion to deal double the damage and synergize better with other talent nodes later down the tree. Next, we go for Arcane of Green. This increases the damage of Infusion, Wild Bloom, and Stack Charge for 10 seconds after Feral Seed is used. Since Feral Seed is used often as well, this will be active most of the time. To be able to cast more Feral Seeds to help with Forest Energy regeneration and activating Arcane of Green, we unlock Swift Bud. Now, we unlock Flourish. This has a chance to reduce your ultimate's cooldown by 1 second whenever Infusion, Wild Bloom, or Feral Seed does damage. However, it can only occur 1 time every second. We also unlock Pulse Breath and Swift Shelter after. Pulse Breath allows Regen Pulse to trigger whenever the cooldown of Nature Ward or your ultimate is complete. Swift Shelter reduces the cooldown of Nature Ward by 2 seconds whenever Regen Pulse is cast or triggered. With these two nodes, Smite Oracle's main gimmick is unlocked. The extra triggers of Regen Pulse and its synergy with reducing Nature Ward's cooldown creates a loop to help Smite Oracle's healing and damage. Note that the triggered Regen Pulses are not affected by Pulse Double. Only Regen Pulses that are cast are affected. Go for Wild Luck after. Wild Luck enables you to generate Regen Buds depending on your luck stat whenever Wild Bloom and Regen Pulse deals damage. If affected by Thorns, this chance is doubled. Take Symbiosis Extension next to extend the duration of active Symbiotic Marks by 1 second wherever a Wild Seed is fired. The next node we want to go for is Verdant Impact. Every 20 stacks of Pulse Echo gain, the end of the next Regen Pulse will trigger Blossom Charge at the location of your lowest health ally and at the location of the currently targeted enemy, healing allies and stunning nearby enemies. This node is important in higher end content to help with the team's survivability since Smite Oracle does not bring Blossom Charge for CC. That is all for the talent tree for the dungeon build. For the raid build, we remove Wide Area Thorns and Verdant Impact. We do not need to spread thorns, and we also do not need to stun enemies in raids. Instead, we take Feral Seed Symbiosis and Laceration. Feral Seed Symbiosis increases Feral Seed's damage by 100% when there are 5 or greater active symbiotic marks. Laceration applies Laceration to the target when Infusion deals damage, increasing Thorn's damage by 100% for 2 seconds. The rest of the talent tree remains the same. Let's move on to gems, which you can embed on every single piece of equipment. You will want to use Diamond and Ruby Abyss gems. Diamond Abyss gems grant luck and intellect, while Ruby Abyss gems grant crit and intellect. Next, we have the recommended modules. The recommended module choices are Intellect Boost, Damage Stack, Crit Focus, Cast Focus, Team Luck and Crit, and Life Wave. Intellect Boost increases your intellect stat while also increasing your magic damage. Damage Stack has a chance to increase damage done to enemies when you deal damage. Crit Focus increases crit damage and healing. Cast Focus increases cast speeds of Infusion and Regen Pulse, allowing you to escape from their long animation locks. Team Luck and Crit is amazing to buff the team's luck and crit damage. Life Wave is also a very good module that increases your highest advanced attribute by 10% for 5 seconds whenever there's a change in health. However, Damage Stack, Team Luck and Crit, and Life Wave can only appear on gold modules, which are very rare to get, so it is not mandatory to go for those module nodes. For the Void Emblem, run Dark Corruption Backtrack, Void Corruption Pulse, and Void Corruption Power. These are not as important, so you do not need to follow these 3 exactly. We also have gear sets that are obtainable from the 20-man raids. I recommend you to only craft these 4 specific pieces out of the 6 available pieces of gear available. Craft the helmet, armor, gauntlet, and boots. The set effects are as follows. The 2 set effect increases the healing conversion ratio of Symbiotic Mark by 4%. For the 4 set effect, casting Wild Bloom or Feral Seed grants a stacking effect up to 3 times. This effect increases the damage of your next infusion by 20% and increases the shield value of your next nature ward by 10%. Finally, let's take a look at the Imagines. For epic Imagine options, the Lizardman Hunter to increase luck and lucky hit damage, and Inferno Goblin Mage to increase your intellect. For legendary Imagine options, we have Storm Goblin King to increase luck and lucky hit damage and healing. Another option is Venom Bazaar Incubator to apply vulnerability to enemies to increase the damage they take. NPC Imagine options are Tina and Irona. Tina accelerates the cooldown of skills for the whole team when activated. Irona revives up to 4 teammates when activated. For F2P players, I recommend going for 1 legendary and 1 epic Imagine. Go for Storm Goblin King or Venom Bazaar Incubator and Lizardman Hunter. For spenders, there are combination options: Storm Goblin King and Tina, Storm Goblin King and Venom Bazaar Incubator, or Venom Bazaar Incubator and Tina are some options you can consider. Irona is only really used for very hard content and raids. So how do you play this spec? Don't worry, there's no need to reset this tree and switch to Lifebind anymore. This spec is actually viable and can deal damage while healing at the same time. Your damage might not be as high as actual DPS classes, but since you are also healing at the same time, you still bring value to the team. In my previous video, the reason I suggested avoiding the spec was due to the class not being able to heal or do damage. The damage part was an oversight since we did not have access to eye level 80 gear at that point in time and could not build for dealing damage. Eye level 80 gear, we have access to higher stats and can aim for certain thresholds to improve our damage and healing capabilities. The healing part was fixed by the devs since there was a bug that prevented this spec from healing properly. Now, Smite is amazing at healing and providing shields to the whole team, especially in raids. Compared to the other 3 specs in raids, Smite heals more than 10 times the amount. This is due to Regen Pulse being able to affect an unlimited amount of players unlike other skills, which are usually kept up to 10 players. This allows Regen Pulse to apply Symbiotic Mark to all 20 players in the raid and allow you to heal everyone at the same time. Sorry for the long yap. Let's now actually move on to the skill rotations for Smite Oracle. For Smite Oracle, there isn't really a rotation, but conditions to follow. To regenerate energy and regen buds, there are a few ways. Weave in basic attacks throughout the fight, or cast Wild Bloom regularly to generate regen buds. This also reduces the cooldown of Infusion and Feral Seed. Feral Seed can be used to regenerate energy. To deal damage and heal, use the generated regen buds to trigger Wild Seeds and Nourishing Seeds. This will upgrade Wild Bloom into Stack Charge, which you use to enhance Infusion. Always cast Feral Seed before Infusion to trigger Arcane of Green to increase Infusion's damage. Cast Infusion to build Pulse Echo stacks and prepare Verdant Impact for the next Regen Pulse. Cast Regen Pulse whenever available to heal and deal damage. For defensive and cooldown cycling, use Nature Ward off cooldown to shield allies and automatically trigger Regen Pulse when the cooldown of Nature Ward or your ultimate ends. With Flourish, Wild Bloom, Infusion, and Feral Seed has a chance to reduce your ultimate's cooldown when dealing damage. Cast your ultimate during high incoming damage phases to provide both healing and damage reduction to allies within the dome. There is also a brief moment of iframe when you cast your ultimate, so it is good to save it for unavoidable high damage attacks from the boss. One thing to take note is to try to keep the uptime of Pulse Echo as long as possible to make sure Regen Pulse heals and deals as much damage as possible. Now, take some time to digest and learn how to play Smite Oracle, as I'm sure there are many players who are planning on playing Oracle and are very interested in the spec. There is a lot of information to take in, and it's okay to not know now, since many things will come naturally as you play the spec. With that, let's move on to Lifebind Spec. Starting off with the advanced attributes, we want to build Mastery, Crit, Versatility, and Haste. Prioritize Mastery, followed by Crit, Versatility, and Haste. Mastery is important since it increases healing intensity. You go for Crit since your heals can crit and benefit from it. Versatility increases overall healing intensity and damage reduction, and is multiplicative with the rest of the attribute. Haste increases energy regeneration, cast speed, and attack speed to allow for smoother skill cycling. It also increases the healing tick rate of Nourish. At level 40 gear, ignore versatility and build haste. For my min-maxers, aim for 40% mastery, 30% crit, 20% versatility, and 25% haste. This is what I have found to be the best attribute spread to maximize the efficiency of Lifebind Spec. These are the skills that you run. While Bloom is automatically changed to Life Bloom, your ultimate skill remains the same, and your expertise skills are Feral Seed, Nourish, Blossom Charge, and Nature Ward. However, there are alternative options depending on what you need. If you need Cleanse, take Regen Pulse. You can take it over Feral Seed if you do not need the energy regeneration it provides. If you need it, then replace Nature Ward. You can also choose to use Growth Wish over the previously mentioned skills if you need extra sources of healing and damage reduction. Skill books prioritize Nourish, followed by Life Bloom, Blossom Charge, Nature Ward, your ultimate, Feral Seed, and finally your basic attack. Here are what the skills do. Life Bloom consumes 30 energy after channeling for 1.8 seconds and heals you and up to 10 nearby allies. Your ultimate Divine Circle Bloom creates a protective dome that deals damage to enemies nearby and heals nearby allies. Standing inside the protective dome grants heal over time and a 25% damage reduction. Feral Seed summons a seed to strike enemies, dealing damage and reducing their move speed, while also restoring 30 energy. Nourish consumes 20 energy to apply Nourish to you and up to 10 nearby allies. It is a heal over time effect which lasts for 10 seconds. Blossom Charge instantly interrupts enemies and stuns them, dealing damage and healing you and nearby allies. Nature Ward grants allies a shield based on your attack power for 10 seconds. Regen Pulse consumes 40 energy after channeling for 2.3 seconds and releases a healing pulse that also cleanses negative effects from allies. Negative effects do not include stun or frozen. Growth Wish consumes 40 energy and channels for 4 seconds, healing you and up to 10 nearby allies over time. Also provides 15% elemental damage reduction. Now let's take a look at the talents. Choosing Lifebind replaces Wild Bloom with Life Bloom, and casting Life Bloom now regenerates a Regen Bud. The first talent node we take is Life Force Extension. This amplifies Healing Chain, which we got from unlocking Healing Breath in the main talent tree, and the number of bounces scale with Mastery. This node helps with early game healing issues. Next, look at Healing Infusion. Healing Infusion increases the next direct expertise healing intensity by 100% after every 5 casts of Life Bloom. This does not apply to Nourish, it only applies to Blossom Charge, Growth Wish, and Regen Pulse. After that, Life Bloom and Full Bloom. The node Life Bloom eliminates the cast time of the skill Life Bloom and increases the healing by 50% after casting Blossom Charge. Full Bloom has a 50% chance to reduce the cooldown of Blossom Charge and Regen Pulse by 2 seconds when Life Bloom is cast. These two nodes are important to unlock since it upgrades Life Bloom, which is used very often to heal your teammates, and also unlocks a core gameplay loop of Lifebind. Next, we go for Transcendence. Every 60 ticks of Nourish, you gain Transcendence, which grants you 100 Force energy instantly and immediately resets the cooldowns of your healing expertise skills. This is especially important since it helps with energy regeneration, which is a big issue for the early game of Lifebind Oracle. However, getting 60 ticks of Nourish early on does not happen so easily as Nourish will expire, so we will need more talent nodes that enhance stacking Nourish. Therefore, go for Vitality and Nourish Essence. Vitality enables Nourish to stack up to 5 stacks, and each time Life Bloom is cast, allies with Nourish will gain another stack of Nourish. Nourish Essence gives Life Bloom a 50% chance to apply Nourish as well. Next, we want Verdant Nourishment to give Nourish a damage reduction effect. Allies with Nourish also receive more healing. This node is very good since it gives the whole team damage reduction and increases healing received. Go for Endless Blossom next to help with energy management. Casting Blossom Charge, Growth Wish, or Regen Pulse has a 20% chance for the next Life Bloom to not consume energy. Now, we want to unlock a main class mechanic, Flower Stalks. To do that, take Flower Time Dance. There are 3 types of Flower Stalks that appear in order every 45 seconds. First one is Crimson Insight, and it reduces the cooldown of your next expertise skill by 50%. The second flower is Golden Devotion, which causes your next expertise skill to increase healing intensity by 20% for 10 seconds. The last flower is Moonlight Solace. Your next Life Bloom applies a shield to affected allies for 8 seconds, absorbing damage equal to 200% of your attack power. While shielded, allies also take 10% less damage. Both Crimson Insight and Golden Devotion are triggered by an expertise skill, while Moonlight Solace is triggered by Life Bloom. Once again, if you have followed the tree up to here so far, you will have spent 50 points in total and can move on to the bottom part of the tree. If not, you might have missed out on some of the intermediate nodes, so have a look and see which one you might have missed out. Moving on, take Energy Expansion to help with energy regeneration. This node causes Blossom Charge to restore 30% of lost energy when cast. Go for Verdant Duet next to give Lifebloom a 20% chance to heal an additional time. Now, we want to upgrade the effects of Inspiration. Pick Inspire and Strengthen followed by Ultimate Inspiration. Inspire and Strengthen additionally provides 50 points of Endurance, Strength, Agility, and Intellect. Ultimate Inspiration doubles Inspiration to a total of 200 points of Endurance, Strength, Agility, and Intellect, and 400 points of Armor. Since this buff is always active as long as you're alive, taking these two nodes brings value to your team. Next, go for Verdant Root. This allows you to create a grass domain when you stand still for 2 seconds. While inside, you gain 10% haste. Exiting the grass domain causes it to disappear, but boosts your movement speed by 50%. Now, we want to improve flower stalks. Take Bud to Blossom, Flourishing Flower, and Tricolor Revelation. Bud to Blossom generates 1 Regen Bud every 2 seconds for 10 seconds when a flower stalk is generated. Flourishing Flower accelerated the generation of flower stalks by 50% when you are in the grass domain. Tricolor Revelation is triggered when you consume Pale Moon Solace. You immediately generate all 3 flower stalks, and this effect can only occur once every 60 seconds. Take Floral Whisper next. Floral Whisper increases Expertise healing intensity by 20%, but reduces Lifebloom's healing intensity by 50%. This is actually a favorable trait since Nourish actually takes up around 70% of your total healing. Finally, we will grab Wings of Revival for emergency healing and to round off the build. Wings of Revival restores HP to an ally when the ally takes damage exceeding 30% of their HP. That is all for the talent nodes. Let's move on to gems. You will want to use Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire Abyss gems. Emerald Abyss gems grant Mastery and Intellect, Ruby Abyss gems grant Crit and Intellect, and Sapphire Abyss gems grant Haste and Intellect. For modules, the recommended module choices are Healing Enhance, Healing Boost, Team Luck and Crit, Crit Focus, and Life Condense. Since both Lifebloom and Nourish are the main healing skills of Lifebind, both healing modules have value. Team Luck and Crit is amazing to buff the team's luck and crit damage, Crit Focus increases the amount of crit healing, Life Condense is also a very good module that increases your healing done when you are above 50% HP. However, both Team Luck and Crit and Life Condense can only appear in gold modules, which are very rare to get, so it is not mandatory to go for those module nodes. For the Void Emblem, run Dark Corruption Backtrack, Void Engram Mystery, and Void Corruption Pulse. These are not as important, so you do not need to follow these 3 exactly. We also have gear sets that are obtainable from the 20-man raids. I recommend you to only craft these 4 specific pieces out of the 6 available pieces of gear. Craft the helmet, armor, gauntlet, and right bracelet. The set effects are as follows. The 2 set effect increases Grove Wish's healing by 20% on the lowest health ally. The 4 set effect creates a shield on allies for 8 seconds when there is excess healing. This shield can go up to a maximum of 30% of the target's health. Finally, let's take a look at the Imagines. For epic Imagine options, we have the Infernal Goblin Mage to increase your intellect, and Warrior Tyrant to increase the damage and healing of special attacks. For legendary Imagine options, we have Venom Bazaar Incubator to apply vulnerability to enemies to increase the damage they take. Another option is Brigand Leader to grant an attack power increase to the whole team. NPC Imagine options are Tina and Irona. Tina accelerates the cooldown of skills for the whole team when activated, and Irona revives up to 4 teammates when activated. For F2P players, I recommend going for 1 legendary and 1 epic Imagine. Go for Venom Bazaar Incubator or Brigand Leader and Infernal Goblin Mage. For spammers, there are combination options. Venom Bazaar Incubator and Tina, Brigand Leader and Venom Bazaar Incubator, or Brigand Leader and Tina. Irona is only really used for very hard content and raids. So how do you play the spec? With the talent nodes greatly enhancing your rotation speed, we're able to stack Nourish to the maximum of 5 stacks and keep the uptime of it very easily. Use Nourish to apply Nourish to the whole team, and then use Blossom Charge to eliminate the cast time of Lifebloom, and then use Lifebloom to continue stacking Nourish. If you find yourself running out of energy, use Feral Seed to regenerate energy. You can also use Blossom Charge to regenerate energy, and then use Lifebloom after to try to reduce the cooldown of Blossom Charge as well. Blossom Charge is also used to stun mobs to help in crowd control and keep your tank alive. However, you can only stun up to 4 times within 15 seconds. Each stun will reduce the duration of the stun. This includes freeze as well, so a frost mage on the team freezing the enemies will add to this mechanic. Some things to note are keeping Nature Ward or your ultimate available if you need the shield and damage reduction for high damage phases. Once again, there's also a brief moment of iframe when you cast your ultimate, so it's good to save it for unavoidable high damage attacks from the boss. Stand within your grass domain as much as possible to generate flower stalks. That is all for the Lifebind Spec. Now it's time for my usual yap after the build showcases. First, I would like to apologize for my previous video discrediting the Smite Spec because of its performance with eye level 60 gear. After extensive testing with endgame gear and stats, it definitely works well, especially in raids. With the current content in CN, both specs perform very well in their own rights. Lifebind is very useful in the mobbing phases since it has an on-demand stun with very low cooldown and has very consistent healing. While Smite has a stun, it is not really on demand and only happens whenever you can trigger Regen Pulse. However, it makes up for it in burst healing with Regen Pulse and shields with Nature Ward and Wild Bloom. It can be harder to heal and keep the team alive in harder content like Master 18 and above, but it's definitely doable with the perfect builds and skill management. For bossing phases, Oracle pales in comparison to the Beat Performer, which is the other support class. However, it is still usable, so feel free to just play what you want to play. The most important thing is to have fun playing what you enjoy, so as long as you're having fun, nothing else matters. Some of you might be on the more, I want to play the most optimal classes side, and that's completely fine too. That's why these guides exist. I've tested these builds for countless hours and still find improvements I can make every day. In my opinion, if you want an easier time playing the game and don't want to invest too much time grinding, Lifebind Oracle would be perfect for you. Lifebind Oracle does not require you to follow strict attribute guidelines, nor does it require any skillbook investments. Smite Oracle, on the other hand, will require you to have decently good attributes to be able to perform and have some skillbook investments as well. However, to me, it is more fun to play Smite Oracle, so if you're looking for more interactive gameplay, Smite Oracle will be more suitable for you. Once again, the written versions of this guide are on Maxroll, link in the description, so do check them out, and you can refer to them in the future if there are any minor changes made to the builds. If there are any major changes like balance patch updates, the guides will be updated very quickly to provide you guys up-to-date information. So enough yapping, that is all I have for this guide. Thank you guys for watching, hit the subscribe button and also follow me on Twitch to catch me live and ask any questions you guys might have. See you next time, bye bye!